Hello, we are Raven,
Cole, Zach, Eric,
and Sydney.
and we are New Tech students with Benjamin Franklin Middle School. In Franklin County, we take our moonshining history very seriously. So, in our English class, we wrote a short story around our county's history and culture. In our narrative, The Two Outlaw Opposites, the moonshining aspect of Franklin County is highlighted, and we hope you enjoy our realistic fiction story. Joe Stone grew up in Franklin County, Virginia, in his very large family. Like many people in the 1920s, his family only made alcohol when they were struggling to make ends meet. The feds had been after them ever since Prohibition had started, but they could never actually catch them. He always had a plan. Derek Foster, on the other hand, had only got into the business when he immigrated over from Australia. The rumor has it that Derek came here to Franklin County because he stole a horse from a local farmer in Melbourne, and the cops were after him. When he came here, he didn't know anything about agriculture, so he helped his neighbors make liquor until he knew how to do it himself. Elliot Finch is the top buyer in Virginia. He's a big businessman that bought products from smaller rings. He asked the two of them to meet and make a deal, but the two young outlaws had no knowledge that it was coming.
I brought you both here today so you can work together. Derek, you have great quality, but you can't make large quantities. And Joe, you have the means to make a ton of liquor.
Elliot exclaimed. Joe's face contorted, as if he was disgusted just by the thought of working with Derek. He looked directly at Elliot.
I don't want to help him, I'm not a good Aussie.
Joe said furiously.
Well, I don't need your bloody help either.
Derek said in his thick accent. The three parted ways, returning to their own business. They went on by themselves for 2 weeks, living paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet. But as the struggle continued, they both began to wonder if there was a better way to do business. It wasn't long before the two decided to swallow their pride and make a deal. As the men sat down to work out the details, they realized they had been wrong about each other all along. They soon became the best of friends. Joe and Derek worked together for a few months, expanding their business, and together they soon took over the top moonshiner in Virginia, Thomas Lynch. He was known for his good product and high prices. But since his customers had been stolen, he had to move his business over to Chesapeake. There were hard feelings between the young outlaws and Thomas. But on January 7, 1926, Thomas reached out to them, asking if they would like to make a deal. Joe was all about the money, but Derek had a bad feeling about him. He was reluctant at first, but Joe insisted. In the end, money talks, and they listened. The next day, they met Thomas in Snow Creek. Derek had an eerie sensation rush over his body that he just couldn't shake. Joe and Derek had a truckload of cases and the expectation that everything would go smoothly. They were sadly mistaken. Bullets started flying everywhere. Derek zipped from the truck and pushed Joe out of the way. He turned around to go back for him, but he saw Raven standing over Derek's body. He took off remorsefully, leaving him behind. He made it down the hill and stopped on the side of the road, where he stopped to take a breath and reevaluate everything that just happened. His eyes stung from the tears that clouded his vision. It was a while before Joe finally made it home. He had just walked into the house when there was a knock on the back door. Joe answered to see Derek's wife, Mary, standing there blazing mad. Joe was sorry to have to listen to her, but he was ecstatic Derek was alive. There wasn't much to be done to get Derek out of jail. It is hard to create a defense when you're caught red-handed. After being sentenced to 24 months in the state penitentiary and fined $1,000, Derek was awaiting his transport from the local jail. Joe was going to find a way to get his best friend out. He did save his life after all. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he had an idea. The Bondurant brothers. They were an unruly trio that they just so happened to be very good friends with. Forrest, the middle brother, had just had an unfinished deal with some lawmen, so him and Joe sealed the bargain with his best friend's freedom. 3 days later, on January 11, 1926, at exactly midnight, Derek was walking through the halls of Franklin County Jail. The chips on the white paint and the sound of metal clinking metal was driving him insane. He needed out. He needed his best friend, the man he took a bullet for, and he needed them fast. And luckily, Joe came through. On the 19th of that month, a judge released Derek with only a fine of $300 and 5 months probation. Joe and Derek's stories continued, the two of them plotting to the world. They stayed best friends until day they both died in a fatal house fire. They were two outlaw opposites, the ones who were an unlikely pair, who made every second of every day the best they possibly could and loved it every step of the way. Their story has stayed with families for decades, and now will stay with yours too.